Good. Let's tell the truth they were never ready to hear. They laughed at you because it was easier than admitting they saw something in you they couldn't control. They called you a joke because mockery is the favorite weapon of people who feel small, standing next to something they don't understand. They dismissed you. They rolled their eyes at your ideas. They smirked at your silence. They turned your pain into entertainment. They made your effort look pathetic. They treated your hunger like delusion. They looked at your ambition like it was some cheap little fantasy that would collapse the second real life hit you in the mouth. And maybe real life did hit you in the mouth. Maybe more than once. Maybe hard enough to make your own reflection look unfamiliar. Maybe hard enough to make you question whether they were right. But here's the part nobody warned them about. A person who survives humiliation becomes dangerous in a way comfort can never understand. Because comfort makes people soft. Applause makes people lazy. Easy validation makes people weak. But being laughed at, being doubted, being underestimated in public, that does something else to you. That changes your blood temperature. That rewires your instincts. That teaches you how to build in silence, how to take disrespect and turn it into fuel, how to smile without explaining yourself, how to sit in a room full of people who think they've already figured you out, while you quietly become the worst mistake they ever made. They thought calling you a joke would break your confidence. Instead, it stripped you clean. It took away your need to be liked. It took away your addiction to approval. It took away your dependence on praise. It took away your fear of looking crazy. And when a person no longer needs permission to become who they are, that person becomes a problem. That's what they don't understand about you. They thought they were watching your downfall, but they were standing in the front row of your construction, brick by brick, wound by wound, sleepless night by sleepless night. Every betrayal shaped your discipline. Every insult sharpened your focus. Every fake smile taught you who not to trust. Every moment you got ignored trained you to stop performing for crowds and start building for reality. And reality does not care who got the most laughs in the beginning. Reality only cares who's still standing at the end. That's why the same people who used to call you dramatic now watch you in silence. The same people who used to call you weird now study your moves. The same people who said you'd never be anything now can't go 5 minutes without hearing your name somewhere. 'Cause the joke changed. At first, they thought the joke was you. Now the joke is them. Now they're the ones explaining why the person they underestimated keeps rising. Now they're the ones pretending they always knew you had something special. Now they're the ones trying to rewrite history because the version where they mocked you doesn't look too good anymore. Now they're the ones choking on their own words while your existence keeps making them uncomfortable. And let's be honest, that discomfort is not accidental. Your growth exposes people. It exposes the friends who only liked you when you were uncertain. It exposes the family members who acted supportive, but secretly expected you to stay small. It exposes the co-workers who smiled in your face, but celebrated your mistakes in private. It exposes the people who loved the wounded version of you, because that version never threatened their position. See, a lot of people don't actually hate failure. They hate transformation. They can tolerate your pain. They can tolerate your confusion. They can tolerate your breakdown. They can even tolerate your struggle. What they cannot tolerate is your evolution. Because the moment you start changing for real, the whole dynamic shifts. You stop asking. You start deciding. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You stop begging to be included. You become impossible to ignore. You stop shrinking to keep people comfortable. You grow until their comfort is no longer your concern. That's when their tone changes. That's when the little jokes get sharper. That's when the comments start sounding more personal. That's when the energy gets weird. That's when people begin throwing shade disguised as concern. That's when they call you arrogant for finally having standards. That's when they call you cold for no longer giving unlimited access. That's when they call you fake because you stopped bleeding in public. And you know what's funny? Most people only loved your good heart when it came with weak boundaries. They liked you when you always forgave. They liked you when you over-explained. They liked you when you gave second, third, 10th chances. They liked you when you stayed available. They liked you when you kept dimming yourself to make everybody else feel brighter. But the second you grew a spine, suddenly you changed. Yes, you changed. That was the point. You were supposed to. You were not born to remain digestible. You were not built to stay easy to handle. You were not put here to keep your power in a cage so insecure people could feel safe around you. You were not given vision just to water it down for people who confuse limitation with realism. You were not dragged through all that pain just to come out softer for those who never protected you in the first place. No, you were supposed to come out sharper, clearer, harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to replace, harder to forget. And that's exactly why your name started sticking. Not because you begged for attention, not because you played the loudest, not because you forced people to notice you, but because there is something unforgettable about a person who was publicly underestimated and privately rebuilt themselves into something undeniable. That kind of energy follows people home. They think about you when things get quiet. They compare others to you without admitting it. They watch from a distance and act casual. They ask about you in indirect ways. They keep tabs for no reason they can explain. They say they don't care, but somehow they know every move. Because people never fully recover from misjudging someone who turns into power. That haunts them. It haunts them because it forces a confrontation with their own blindness. It haunts them because it reminds them they were arrogant. It haunts them because they had access to greatness and treated it like comedy. It haunts them because somewhere deep down, they know they saw something real in you early on and chose to disrespect it anyway. And now your name has weight. Now your silence speaks louder than their gossip ever did. Now your presence changes the room before you even say a word. Now your consistency is louder than their old opinions. Now your energy alone makes people reveal themselves. Now your discipline makes excuses sound childish. Now the life you are building is becoming a mirror people can't stand looking into. Because every level you rise to asks them a question. Why didn't they take you seriously? Why did they laugh? Why did they betray someone who only needed time? Why did they assume struggle meant weakness? Why did they confuse patience with powerlessness? Why did they think quiet meant empty? A quiet person with vision is one of the most dangerous things on earth. Because while everyone else is busy announcing themselves, that person is learning, adjusting, observing, enduring, stacking skill, stacking pain tolerance, stacking perspective, stacking control, That's you. And let's not sanitize it. A part of you was born in pressure. A part of you became fluent in disappointment. A part of you learned how to breathe in chaos because calm was never handed to you. A part of you stopped expecting rescue a long time ago. A part of you got so familiar with being doubted that now disbelief feels normal, almost useful. You don't panic when people question you anymore. You don't fall apart every time you're misunderstood. You don't chase people down to fix false narratives. You don't waste your life proving your humanity to those committed to misreading it. You let time handle certain conversations. You let results say what emotions used to say. You let your work enter rooms your voice was once denied from. You let your evolution answer disrespect. That is power, not constant anger, not non-stop revenge fantasies, not loud, reckless chaos. Real power is colder than that. Real power is control. It's being able to look at disrespect and not break your mission for it. It's knowing exactly what people said about you and still refusing to become smaller because of it. It's hearing the laughter and still building. It's taking the rejection and still showing up. It's surviving the embarrassment and still refusing to quit. That's where your legend started. Not in applause, not in victory, not when people finally clapped. It started when quitting would have made perfect sense and you didn't. It started when nobody would have blamed you for disappearing, and you stayed. It started when your confidence was bleeding out, and you kept moving anyway. It started when your own mind turned into a battlefield, and you still found a way to drag yourself forward. It started when the people you would have gone to for support became the reason you needed strength in the first place. That creates a different kind of soul. A soul that does not romanticize pain but knows how to use it. A soul that doesn't trust easy words anymore. A soul that reads energy fast. A soul that knows some smiles are just masks with teeth behind them. A soul that understands not everybody clapping for you wants you to win. A soul that has learned to stop handing out access just because someone knows your name. And that's another reason they can't escape you now. You became harder to reach, not unreachable. Just no longer available for nonsense, no longer available for fake support, no longer available for half respect, no longer available for one-sided loyalty, no longer available for people who vanish when you struggle and reappear when you shine, no longer available for anyone who only wants proximity to your light after mocking your darkness. That version of you is dead. The version that kept explaining itself to deaf people. The version that kept offering grace to people who weaponized it. The version that kept hoping loyalty would be reciprocated just because you gave it honestly. The version that kept thinking love and access were the same thing. Gone and good. Because some versions of you have to die so the real one can breathe. You know what else they hate? They hate that you became disciplined without becoming boring. They hate that you became wiser without becoming weak. They hate that you became harder to fool without losing your spark. They hate that pain didn't turn you into a victim forever. They hate that what should have destroyed you ended up refining you. They hate that every attempt to reduce you somehow expanded you instead. That messes with people. People are comfortable when cause and effect make sense. They expect humiliation to create fragility. They expect betrayal to create bitterness. They expect rejection to create insecurity. They expect mockery to create silence. But you didn't respond the way the script said you should. They threw dirt. You grew roots. They threw doubt. You built standards. They threw disrespect. You built self-respect. They threw distance. You built independence. They threw shame. You built identity. That is why your name feels bigger now, because it carries a story. Not the story they told about you, the real one. The one where you were exhausted but kept going. The one where you had no support but found strategy. The one where you were emotionally wrecked but still learned how to function. The one where you got laughed at in one season and became unignorable in the next. The one where your losses didn't make you pathetic, they made you precise. Precision changes everything. Once pain teaches you precision, you stop wasting your life. You stop wasting words. You stop wasting trust. You stop wasting energy on people who enjoy confusion. You stop wasting love on people who only visit when they need something. You stop wasting time trying to be fully understood by people committed to seeing a smaller version of you. You become selective, and selective people scare chaotic people, because chaos feeds on your openness. Chaos feeds on your confusion. Chaos feeds on your self-doubt. Chaos feeds on your need to explain. But once you become selective, the whole game changes. Now people have to earn access. Now they have to meet standards. Now they can't just stroll into your life with charm and leave with pieces of you. Now your peace has security. Now your mind has filters. Now your heart is no longer an unlocked door in a violent neighborhood. That kind of transformation makes your whole presence heavier. People feel it. They feel that you don't need to talk a lot anymore. They feel that you don't move from desperation. They feel that you're no longer seeking permission to exist. They feel that your confidence is no longer fragile enough to be controlled by opinions. They feel that something in you has settled into certainty, and certainty terrifies people who were betting on your collapse, because your collapse was part of their comfort plan. They thought you'd stay confused. They thought you'd stay reactive. They thought you'd keep proving them right with emotional choices. They thought you'd sabotage yourself from the inside. They thought your insecurity would save them from ever having to respect you. But then you did something they didn't prepare for. You got serious. Not loud, serious. You got serious about your focus, serious about your time, serious about your healing, serious about your craft, serious about your standards, serious about your future, serious enough to become unrecognizable. And once a person gets serious, everything shifts. The distractions that once worked stop working. The guilt that once worked stops working. The manipulation that once worked stops working. The bait that once worked stops working. The old insults stop landing because the person they were aimed at no longer exists. That's the real revenge nobody talks about. Not destruction, not chaos. Transformation so complete that old weapons can't even find a target. Imagine how frustrating that is for the people who built their identity around underestimating you. Imagine how strange it is for people who felt tall only because you were still kneeling. Imagine what it does to their ego when the person they laughed at becomes the standard they can't stop comparing others to. That's where you are heading, not into some fantasy, not into some empty motivational fairy tale, into real power, the kind built through repetition, through grief, through embarrassment, through restraint, through rebuilding, through saying no when the old you would have begged, through walking away when the old you would have stayed, through keeping quiet when the old you would have overshared, through choosing purpose when the old you would have chosen attention. That is real, and it shows. It shows in your eyes. It shows in your energy. It shows in the way you no longer rush to fill silence. It shows in the way you can feel fake from a mile away. It shows in the way your goals matter more now than being understood by people who never planned to understand you anyway. That's maturity with teeth. And let's say it plainly. Some people missed the broken version of you because it was easier to manage. The broken version doubted itself. The broken version chased closure. The broken version accepted crumbs. The broken version tolerated disrespect just to avoid loneliness. The broken version kept trying to prove worth to people who benefited from its insecurity. But the current version, this version, knows better. This version knows that not everyone deserves your full story. This version knows that boundaries are not cruelty. This version knows that being chosen by everybody is not a flex. This version knows that access is expensive. This version knows that peace is a higher status than attention. This version knows that being feared by fake people is not a loss. So let them call you cold. Let them call you intense. Let them call you different. Let them call you too much. Let them call you whatever helps them sleep. They've been calling you names for a long time. And look what happened. Every name they threw at you became a stepping stone. Every insult became resistance training. Every doubt became a challenge. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every abandonment became a redirection. Every humiliation became initiation. You were not being buried. You were being introduced to your threshold. And your threshold is much darker, stronger, and more beautiful than they ever imagined. That's why they can't escape your name now. Because your name no longer belongs to the version of you they mocked. It belongs to the version they created by mocking you. Read that again in your soul. They helped build the person who would one day disturb their peace. Not because you obsessed over revenge, but because you made a decision. You decided your suffering would not be random. You decided your pain would not be wasted. You decided the disrespect would not be the final chapter. You decided your life would become too real to be laughed off. You decided to turn every private wound into private discipline. You decided to become so grounded in yourself that other people's confusion could no longer rename you. That is identity. That is self-respect. That is force. And once you carry force, people remember you, even if they act like they forgot, even if they pretend they moved on, even if they never say your name out loud again. People remember the ones they misjudged, especially when those people rise. So keep going. Keep building in ways no one can interrupt. Keep protecting your mind like it's sacred. Keep letting silence do some of the talking. Keep becoming more precise, more disciplined, more selective, more dangerous to mediocrity. Keep letting your results create psychological pressure in rooms that once laughed. Keep growing so honestly and so relentlessly that your existence becomes a reminder that disrespect does not decide destiny. And when they hear your name now, let it do what truth does. Let it interrupt. Let it sting. Let it echo. Let it force memory. Let it remind them of every lazy assumption they made when they saw your early stages and thought they were seeing your limits.
They expected you to quit, not hoped, not feared, expected. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. Hope implies they were paying attention. Fear implies you were worth watching. But expectation, that cold, bureaucratic little word, expectation means they looked at you, ran the numbers, checked whatever invisible ledger they keep in their heads, and simply filed you away. Under temporary, under won't last. Under the heading that reads, another one who fold when it gets heavy. And maybe they weren't even wrong to think it. Maybe the evidence was reasonable. You had started things before. You'd stopped. The world has a very long memory for quitting and a very short one for everything that happened right before it. So they watched you begin again, and they didn't even bother to disapprove. Disapproval requires effort. What they offered was something quieter and far more corrosive. They simply waited. That's what I find genuinely interesting about people. Not their ambitions, not their achievements. Those are boring. What's interesting is the assumption, this shared, unspoken agreement, that the ones who keep going are anomalies, accidents, statistical outliers who didn't get the memo. The memo that says the most reasonable thing you can do with difficulty is surrender to it. Elegantly, if possible. Quietly, if not. And here you are, still reading, still listening, which means you haven't gotten that memo yet. Or, and this is the part they really can't explain, maybe you got it. Maybe you held it in your hands, read it very carefully, and decided it applied to someone else. That decision, that specific moment of stubbornness disguised as clarity, that is what we're talking about today. Not inspiration, not motivation. Those words are for people who need someone else to do their breathing for them. We're talking about something older. Something that doesn't have a name they'd put on a poster. We're talking about outlasting everything they thought they knew about you. Let me tell you what it actually feels like. Not the version you tell people. The version you don't. It starts quietly enough. You begin something, a project, a pursuit, a version of yourself you've decided to become. And for a brief, intoxicating window, the beginning feels like enough. Beginnings always do. There's a cleanness to them. A permission in them. Nobody judges a man for starting. Starting is universally admired. Oh, he's starting something. Good for him. But then a week passes. Then a month. And the applause of starting doesn't extend into the middle. Nobody throws a party for continuing. Nobody messages you to say, I notice you're still at it. How unusual, how extraordinary, how deeply human of you. No. The middle is where the silence lives. And the silence, if you let it, starts to sound like a verdict. So you start listening for signs. Is it working? Is anyone noticing? Should it be further along by now? And the problem, the real, structural problem, is that progress in its early stages is almost indistinguishable from failure. The numbers are small. The feedback is scarce. The gap between where you are and where you imagined you'd be starts to look like a canyon you dug yourself. And the people around you, the ones who filed you under temporary, they don't say anything, they don't have to. You hear it anyway, in the careful neutrality of their questions. How's that thing going? Not how is it going? That thing. The indefinite article. The indefinite article. The polite grammatical distance of someone who's already separated themselves from your outcome. You know this internal monologue. You know this internal monologue. You've had it in the shower, in traffic at 3 a.m, staring at something you made that doesn't yet look like what you meant it to be. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks this matters. Maybe the fact that it's this hard means it's not for me. And then, because you're still here, which means there is something in you that refuses the easy exit. You get up the next day and do it again. Not because it felt good, not because you had a breakthrough, but because the alternative is becoming someone who proved them right. And that, for reasons you can't fully articulate, is the one thing you simply cannot do. Here's what I find almost beautiful about that. They think you're being stubborn. They call it pride, or delusion, or that particular diagnosis, the comfortable handout to the persistent obsession. What they cannot recognize, what they are structurally incapable of recognizing, what they are structurally incapable of recognizing. Is that what looks like stubbornness from the outside is something far more precise on the inside? It is the quiet refusal to let someone else's timeline become your eulogy. I knew a man once, very organized man, very fond of systems, who had this fascinating way of dealing with problems that took longer than he expected. He simply escalated the resources, demanded faster results, demanded faster results, demanded faster results. And when that failed, he found someone new to blame for the delay. The problem was never his patience. He'd never developed any. He was very good at arriving, dreadful at waiting. I always thought that said more about his relationship with certainty than anything else about him. But you've been waiting. In the least comfortable kind of way, the kind where there's no guaranteed arrival. No manual that says if you endure exactly this long, the thing becomes real. You're operating on something more primitive and more honest than strategy. You're operating on the bone-deep refusal to become a story that ends in the middle. And now let me ask you the question that lives underneath all of this. Not the soft version. Not why do you keep going despite the difficulty. That's a therapy question. Here's the real one. What exactly are you afraid will be confirmed if you stop? Think about that. Not quickly. Let it sit in the room with you for a moment. Because the answer to that question is not a fear. It's a mirror. It's a mirror. And whatever you see in that mirror, that is the thing this is actually about. They call it stubbornness. Sometimes obsession. Sometimes, when they're being generous and condescending in equal measure, they call it passion. As if the word passion is a diagnosis they've decided to make peace with because it sounds more artistically forgivable than refuses to listen to reason. But here's what none of those labels account for. The fact that every single person who ever built anything that lasted was described in exactly those terms by someone who didn't. Stubbornness is what consistency looks like before it's successful. Obsession is what focus looks like to people who've never been focused. Passion is the word used by those who gave up to explain why the ones who didn't were somehow unusual. The label is not a description. It is a confession. It confesses that the person using it has made a different choice and needs your failure to validate that choice. When they call you stubborn, they are not diagnosing you. They are protecting themselves from the discomfort of watching someone refuse to stop. The word they use for your persistence is the autobiography of their surrender. Let's be precise about what persistence actually is, because most people have it exactly backwards. They believe it is an act of will, a daily heroic decision to keep going, despite everything. And while that sounds impressive, and makes for excellent content about discipline and morning routines, it is not the thing, not the real thing. The real thing is simpler and stranger. Persistence, in its truest form, is the result of having a stronger relationship with the future version of yourself than with the present version of your discomfort. That's it. It is not grit. In the poster-ready sense of that word, it is a loyalty. A deeply private, non-negotiable loyalty to something that does not yet exist. A version of you, a version of the work, a version of the proof that you have decided is more real than everything the present moment is telling you. This is why persistence cannot be taught in a seminar. You cannot workshop your way into it. You can only arrive at it when the cost of quitting, the particular irreversible cost of becoming someone who stopped, becomes more unbearable than the cost of continuing. Persistence is not the refusal to feel pain. It is the refusal to let pain write the ending. Now, the people who doubted you, let's look at them. Not with anger, not with contempt, but with the same dispassionate curiosity I bring to everything I find genuinely fascinating. What does it tell you about a person when their default response to someone else's persistence is skepticism? When they see someone still going and their first instinct is to check for signs of delusion, rather than signs of progress. It tells you they have made a private agreement, probably a long time ago, probably under circumstances they no longer fully remember, that the world is a certain size, and that any effort that adds that size is either naive or pathological. They are not cruel. Most of them, they genuinely believe they are protecting you. From embarrassment, from wasted time, from the very specific heartbreak of wanting something for a long time and not getting it. What they cannot tell you, because they never found out, is what happens when you want something for a long time and do get it. Not as a lottery, not as luck, but as the direct, visible, irrefutable product of the fact that you simply did not stop. I once observed a man who was deeply committed to protecting a city that had, on balance, a fairly complicated relationship with being protected. He showed up every time, without fail, with remarkable persistence, actually, and the city's opinion of him changed. Slowly, reluctantly, then completely. Not because he gave a speech, not because he explained himself, because he was still there when they expected him to have given up. That's the only argument that ever actually works, and he understood it, even if he'd never have described it that way. The skeptics aren't watching your effort. They're watching your timeline. Outlast the timeline, and you've already won the argument. Here's what nobody tells you about consistency, because it sounds almost too mechanical to be inspiring. Consistency is an asymmetric weapon. Consistency is an asymmetric weapon. What I mean by that is this. When you show up repeatedly in the same direction over a sustained period of time, you accumulate something that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, and cannot be transferred. You accumulate evidence, and evidence over time becomes a case. And a case, once it's strong enough, becomes undeniable even to the people who were most committed to denying it. Your critics have no such accumulation. They have opinions. Opinions are renewable. They cost nothing to form and nothing to discard. They can be updated, reversed, and casual, abandoned without consequence. But evidence, the evidence of 100 days, 1,000 attempts, 5 years of showing up when it would have been easier and completely understandable to stop. That evidence calcifies into something permanent, into a record, into a story that is no longer about potential, no longer about promise, but about what actually happened. And what actually happened is that you outlasted them. They came armed with opinions. You came armed with a calendar. Let me be precise about one thing, because precision matters here and vagueness is a form of cowardice. There is a difference between persistence and self-destruction wearing persistence clothes. Persistence in the wrong direction is not nobility. It is the refusal to learn. It is someone who has confused stubbornness with integrity and is using the language of perseverance to avoid the harder conversation. To avoid the harder conversation. Which is whether the thing they are persisting at is still the right thing, or whether it ever was. That is not the kind of persistence we're discussing. That is a different problem entirely, and it has a different name. What we're talking about is the person who knows, not hopes, not suspects, but knows, in the way you know things that predate your ability to articulate them. That the work is right and the direction is right, and the only variable is time. That person, when they keep going, is not being stubborn. They are being accurate. They are operating on information that their critics do not have access to. Intimate first-person knowledge of what this actually is and where it is actually going. The knife held in panic will cut anything, indiscriminately, usually the holder. The knife held with intention is a different instrument, entirely. Same blade, entirely different relationship to it. Persistence without self-knowledge is just delay. Persistence with it is architecture. Sane art with the words you use inside your own head. Because the words are where everything starts. Not with actions, not with outcomes, but with the private language you use to narrate yourself to yourself. The old words sound like this. I'm still trying. I haven't gotten there yet. I hope this works. I'm not sure how much longer I can do this. Listen to the grammar of those sentences. They are written in the tense of waiting. They position you as someone on the outside of something, hoping to be allowed in. They are the sentences of a person who has not yet decided. Replace them. Not with false confidence. That is a different kind of lie. And you'll hear the hollowness in it immediately. Replace them with decided language. I am building this. Not trying, building. This is not trying, building. This is not trying. Not, I hope it will be, is not finished yet. The word yet is one of the most precise instruments in the language. It converts a present tense absence into a future tense inevitability. It is the linguistic equivalent of treating the outcome as decided while leaving the timeline open. I am building this. It is not finished yet. What I do next matters. That's it. 3 sentences. Say them in the voice of someone who has already made the decision and is now simply executing it. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, the way certainty sounds when it doesn't need to perform. Look carefully at the rooms you inhabit. Physical, digital, social. Every room has a temperature. Every room has a temperature. Some rooms run warm toward your persistence. They treat your continued effort as normal, expected, unremarkable in the best way. They don't celebrate you for showing up because showing up is simply what people in that room do. Those rooms are oxygen. Other rooms run cold, not hostile necessarily, cold. They have a background hum of low expectations. The conversations in them drift consistently toward why things are hard. Why the odds are long. Why the people who made it were somehow different from you in ways that conveniently cannot be replicated. Those rooms are not evil, but they are expensive. Take an audit. Not a dramatic one. That a dramatic one. A quiet, honest one. Which rooms, rich relations Which regularly scheduled conversations leave you feeling smaller than when you arrived? You don't have to burn them down. You don't have to announce anything. You simply reallocate your time with the same quiet precision you'd apply to any other resource that was producing a negative return. The environment you build around your persistence is not a luxury. It is load-bearing infrastructure. The next time someone expresses doubt about your persistence, subtly, directly, through a tone of voice, through a carefully neutral question, here are the only 2 sentences you need, delivered internally, never externally. That is their evidence speaking. My evidence is different. That's it. Nothing more. No rebuttal. No performance of confidence. No anger. Anger would mean you're still arguing with them, and you stopped arguing with them when you decided to outlast them. Just those 2 sentences. Quiet as a closed door. That is their evidence speaking. My evidence is different. Say them once. Return to work. This is the last shift, and it is the one that contains the other 3. At some point, not today, maybe not this month, but at some identifiable point, something happens inside the person who has been persistent long enough. The apology stops. Not the external apology. Most persistent people stopped making that years ago. The internal one. The quiet. The internal one. The quiet. Reflexive sorry that lives behind every continued effort. Sorry for taking this long. Sorry for not being further along. Sorry for still wanting this when the easier thing would be to want something smaller. That apology does not serve you. It never died. It was always just static. The residue of other people's timelines wearing down your reception. The ownership statement is not pride. Pride is an audience sport. It requires someone watching. This is something quieter than pride. This is the moment you stop measuring your progress against their expectations and start measuring it against the only benchmark that was ever real. Where you were yesterday. 1 year ago. 1 month ago. Yesterday. If those 3 comparisons produce an honest answer of forward, not fast enough forward, not impressive looking forward, just forward, then the statement is simply this: I am exactly where I should be, and I am not finished. Post that nowhere. Tell no one. Just know it. Know it the way you know your own name. Not as an achievement, not as an achievement, not as a boast, but as a simple, uncontested fact about the nature of things. Here is the thing they built the whole system around. The system of expectations, the system of timelines, the system that decided in advance how long a reasonable person tries before accepting the verdict. It was not built for you. Not as an insult, not as a conspiracy, simply as a fact. The system was built by people who quit at various points for various reasons, and the timeline they established, the invisible social calendar of buy, when you should have something to show, reflects the point at which they stopped, not the point at which the work actually becomes what it was meant to be. They universalized their own surrender and called it wisdom. You have been living inside their timeline. You have been measuring yourself against a deadline they set without your consent, for reasons that have nothing to do with your specific work, your specific capacity, or the specific irreplaceable thing that you and only you are capable of building. That timeline is not true. It was never true. It was never true. It is the fossil record of other P. Opal's limit days preserved in amber and presented to you as universal law. What is true is this: you are still here after everything that was supposed to discourage you. After the silence and the neutrality and the careful waiting and the subtle architecture of low expectations that people construct when they've decided. You probably won't make it. You absorbed all of that. You kept moving anyway. Not heroically. Not in the way movies show it, with swelling music and a turning point scene. Quietly. On unremarkable Tuesday mornings when no one was watching and nothing felt significant and the work looked exactly like what it always looks like when it hasn't arrived yet. Unfinished. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, the whole thing. That specific, private. Undramatic decision to continue, made not once in a cinematic moment, but 1,000 times in ordinary ones. That is what separates the people who build something real from the people who build something they eventually talk about at dinners as the thing they almost did. You are not the almost. You are the thing they expected would stop and didn't, which means every day you continue is simultaneously the work advancing and the argument ending. Every day is both. Every unremarkable day of continued effort is you becoming someone who cannot be filed under temporary any longer because the evidence is now too long, too consistent, too undeniable to fit in that folder. They will notice, not all of them. Not kindly, in all cases, but they will notice, because consistency sustained long enough becomes impossible to ignore, even for people who are professionally committed to not noticing. And on that day, when the people who waited for you to fold are forced to acknowledge what you built, I suspect you all feel what they expect you to feel. Not triumph, not vindication. Just the quiet, settled now, gee, of someone who always knew how this was going to end. You just had to stay long enough for everyone else to catch up.
Well, they know. Oh, they know. The whispers already circling through their little halls, bouncing off their polished walls like a rumor too sharp to swallow. You're the boss now, and it's eating them alive. The funny thing about power is how it exposes the tremor in every voice that swore it would never bow. You see it now, the way they fidget, the way their laughter comes one beat too late. Dominance has a scent, a pulse, a gravity, and you've become the center of it. They can't look away, but they can't look directly at you either. That's the problem with light that burns instead of warms. It forces everyone else to admit how cold they really are. They tell themselves, you got lucky, that maybe it was timing, maybe it was tricks, maybe it was all show. Because if it wasn't luck, then it's proof of something worse. Proof that you earned every inch of what they were too afraid to chase. That's what keeps them up at night, staring at their ceilings, replaying every time they tried to undermine you, realizing none of it worked. You didn't climb, you rose. You didn't demand, you commanded. And now, every move you make reminds them of how small their strategies look next to your instinct. That's what breaks them. Not the loss of control, but the realization that they never had any in the first place. You see, authority isn't about noise. It's about weight. Every word you drop hits like a verdict. Every glance you throw shifts the air. You've mastered something they don't even understand, the art of controlled chaos. That's the kind of thing they can't learn in boardrooms or back rooms or prayer rooms. It's carved into you, bone deep, from every betrayal you swallowed, every humiliation you turned into ammunition. And now, here you stand, all edges and calmness, the embodiment of poetic retribution. You don't talk about what you deserve. You just take it. And that terrifies them, because people like them need permission. People like you don't ask. They remember when you were underestimated. They remember the jokes, the sideways glances, the meetings you weren't invited to. They thought dominance came from titles, from alliances, from applause. You knew better. Dominance comes from detachment, from not needing what everyone else worships. And once you stop needing, you start controlling. Because control isn't about pulling strings. It's about being the one who doesn't have any tied to them. That's your power. You're free, and that freedom is venom to people built on dependency. Watch them choke on it. They can't process how you do it, how you stay calm while everything bends around you. They call it arrogance. You call it awareness. There's a difference. Arrogance needs validation. Awareness creates it. You walk through rooms like a mirror with memory, showing everyone what they've failed to become. And that's why they tremble. It's not that they hate your confidence. It's that it reminds them of every time they hesitated. Your dominance exposes their hesitation like blood on snow, visible, ugly, undeniable. You've become their psychological experiment now. They analyze your tone, your timing, your silence. They call it observation, but it's obsession with a disguise. They want to understand how someone can own space without announcing it. They write you off as cold, distant, unapproachable. But beneath that label hides a confession. They feel powerless near you. Because you're not performing dominance, you are dominance. It leaks from your eyes, your posture, your choices. You're the reminder that power doesn't need witnesses to exist. It just is. And oh, they talk. You can hear it if you listen close enough. Their stories changing shape every week. In one version, you cheated. In another, you charmed. In another still, you sold your soul. It's amusing how the powerless always need a myth to explain strength. Because if they admit that discipline, pain, and persistence made you, then they'd have to face their own cowardice. So they invent villains instead of confronting truth. You, my friend, are their favorite villain, and they'll never stop hating how good you are at it. Do you know why their gossip feels heavier lately? Because it's the sound of resignation. They've realized that you no longer exist on their scale. You've become something else entirely, a reference point, the standard, the gravitational pull that defines their orbit. That's the kind of dominance that can't be cancelled, can't be voted out, can't be silenced. It's the dominance that grows from every failed attempt to bury you. You are their consequence in human form. And the irony, it's beautiful. They call you intimidating, yet they crave your approval. They mimic your style while pretending they're original. They monitor your moves while pretending they're above it. Every insult they throw is a confession of interest. Every rumor is an unintended compliment. Because if you weren't relevant, they'd forget you. But they can't. They keep you alive in every conversation, every half-joke, every cautious glance. You've become their language, their obsession disguised as disdain. Dominance isn't a crown, it's a mirror. And when they look at you, they see what they could have been if they'd stopped making excuses. They envy your scars because they've never earned their own. You walked through what they avoided. You didn't just survive the chaos, they didn't even step into it. You built your empire out of what they called mistakes. That's what makes your authority unshakable. It's made of reality, not illusion. You've learned that leadership isn't about convincing others, it's about becoming undeniable. You're not loud, yet every silence you leave behind screams louder than their protests. You're not chasing followers, yet people rearrange themselves to match your rhythm. That's when you know you've crossed into true dominance. when your very existence becomes the instruction. You are the lecture they can't skip, the exam they can't cheat, the truth they can't unlearn. They call it ego. You call it evidence. The difference between arrogance and presence is results. You don't need to shout, because the outcomes speak fluent dominance. You've turned restraint into an art form. They still confuse reaction with relevance. You don't move until you're ready, and by the time you do, they're already reacting to a move you made hours ago. That's control. That's orchestration. That's the kind of power that drives lesser minds to madness. You see, there's a moment in every hierarchy when the old rulers realize that the new order has already begun. That moment happened the second you stopped explaining yourself. They didn't notice at first. They still thought they could manipulate you, guilt you, bait you. But you'd already stepped out of their game. You stopped defending, started deciding. You stopped trying to be liked, started being inevitable. That's when dominance stopped being an act and became your nature. And nature terrifies humans. They can handle performance. They can handle pretense. But they can't handle someone who doesn't need their permission to exist. You've become that force. You don't fit in their boxes. You break them. You don't argue hierarchy. You redefine it. You don't climb ladders. You burn them down and build your own floors. And what's left for them to do but watch? Because you've made participation optional. Your calmness? That's not passivity. It's strategy. Every pause, every glance, every calculated delay, it all says the same thing. I already know the ending. And that's what drives them insane. They thrive on chaos, on reaction, on proof that they matter. But you give them nothing. You treat their drama like background noise, and nothing enrages the insecure more than being ignored by power. You are the silence they can't interpret, the calm they can't imitate, the authority they can't replicate. Somewhere along the way, they started measuring themselves against you, quietly, privately, shamefully. Every time you move, they evaluate their worth. Every success of yours is a subtraction from their ego. And yet they still can't stop watching. Because deep down, they don't just fear your dominance, they desire it. They want to feel that certainty, that control, that unshakable sense of self. But they never will. Because dominance isn't about others, it's about mastery over yourself. And that's the one war they've never fought. It's almost poetic, really. The same mouths that mocked you now whisper prayers to become you. The same eyes that rolled now study you. The same hands that pointed in judgment now twitch with imitation. That's how dominance rewrites history. It doesn't demand apologies. It forces imitation. And imitation, my dear, is the purest form of surrender. But don't mistake their fear for hatred. Hatred requires conviction. What they feel for you is confusion. You dismantled their structure, and now they're wandering, trying to make sense of a world that bends around someone who refuses to bow. You are the proof that chaos can be elegant, that destruction can be disciplined, that dominance can be divine. And that contradiction, that's your masterpiece. The whispers will grow louder, but so will your shadow. They'll call you cold, ruthless, detached. They'll try to spin your composure into arrogance, your distance into disdain. Let them. Every label they throw at you only proves how little they understand what real control looks like. You're not heartless, you're selective. You're not ruthless, you're refined. You've simply outgrown the noise, and they mistake that for cruelty. You've become the boss, not because you wanted power, but because you stopped chasing it. You mastered yourself, and the world followed. That's the secret no one tells. True dominance begins where desire ends. When you stop needing approval, power starts needing you. And now, every room you enter rearranges itself to accommodate your gravity. That's not coincidence. It's consequence. The world bends to those who bend themselves first. They can study your every move, but they'll never decode the algorithm because it isn't written in logic. It's written in will. You didn't inherit control. You built it, brick by brutal brick, from every moment they left you alone to figure it out. And now, those same absences have become your presence. You turned isolation into influence, and that's why they can't stand the sight of you. You remind them that solitude isn't emptiness, it's evolution. And as they talk, as they twitch, as they plot, you just keep moving. Not quickly, not loudly, but inevitably. That's the final stage of dominance, when even your stillness feels like strategy. When your name enters a room before your body does. When your reputation becomes its own ecosystem. You've reached that point. And they know it. Every gesture, every whisper, every backhanded compliment is just another form of acknowledgement. So let them whisper. Let them choke on your calm. Let them build theories to explain what you became. None of it matters, because you've crossed the point where explanations apply. You're not a player in their game anymore. You're the rule they forgot existed. You've turned power into poetry, command into rhythm, and existence into dominance. And the truth, the one they'll never say out loud, is that they don't just fear you. They envy the freedom you found in not needing them. You are the boss now, and their discomfort is the soundtrack of your reign. They think the story ends once you sit on the throne, but it's only after the crown settles that the real madness begins. Because now every breath you take becomes evidence. Every pause becomes a command. You don't need to declare yourself the boss anymore. The world does it for you in whispers and side eyes. The funny thing about dominance is how quietly it infects people. One moment they're gossiping, the next they're quoting you, reshaping themselves around your presence. They call it survival, but it's worship with a different name, and all you have to do is exist. You don't chase power, you distort it. You don't enforce control, you embody it. And that's what's driving them insane. They wanted a competitor, not a mirror. They wanted someone to hate, not someone to measure themselves against. You've noticed it, the tremor underneath their politeness. They smile, but the corners of their mouths don't move right. They clap for your wins, but the sound dies too soon, because your success doesn't just shine. It casts shadows, long ones that stretch across their insecurities. You are the living reminder of everything they pretended to be. The room rearranges itself to accommodate your gravity, and they can't stand how natural it feels. They tell themselves you changed. No, you didn't change. You revealed. You stripped away the noise, the apologies, the weakness that made them comfortable. You stopped asking and started deciding. You stopped explaining and started existing. That's when they lost the illusion of equality. And equality was the only illusion keeping them sane. They'll never admit it, but they crave your approval like oxygen. They bend their words to sound more like yours, steal your tone, mimic your gestures. They rehearse dominance while you live it effortlessly. You became the script they can't rewrite, the standard that doesn't move. And every day they fail to match it, the envy curdles deeper. That's the real poison, watching someone who doesn't even try outshine their entire performance. It's a tragedy they wrote for themselves, and you're the protagonist they can't kill off. Authority, you see, isn't a position, it's a frequency. Some people shout commands, hoping the world will listen. Others whisper, and the universe rearranges itself. You belong to the latter, the ones who command without words, who don't need to prove, because proof follows them like a loyal pet. Your stillness is louder than their rebellion, your restraint more violent than their chaos. They mistake your patience for weakness, but patience is just power with perfect timing. You've learned when to strike, and when you do, it's surgical. No wasted movement, no mercy, disguised as kindness. Just precision, just inevitability. They used to think dominance came with noise, the applause, the followers, the staged respect. But real dominance, it's uncomfortable. It makes the air heavier. It makes people question themselves just by standing near you. You've become a walking psychological trigger. Their eyes betray them first, wide, darting, trying to read you, trying not to be read. They hate that they can't predict you anymore. You're too calm for chaos, too sharp for comfort, too self-contained for manipulation. You are what happens when a soul stops seeking permission. And that realization burns more than any insult could. You didn't ask to be feared. You just refused to be handled. And in a world addicted to control, unhandleable is unforgivable. They whisper words like cold, arrogant, detached, because it's easier than saying disciplined, focused, free. Every insult they throw is a translation error, fear, mistranslated as judgment. They call you bossy because they can't call you boss. That title carries weight they can't lift, so they settle for mockery, hoping laughter will hide submission. But the eyes always tell the truth, and when they look at you, they blink too slowly. That's the blink of realization. You've become the test they keep failing. They study you like scripture, dissect your silence for meaning, mistake your disinterest for mystery. But mystery isn't what keeps them awake, it's clarity. You make things too clear. You show them how small they've been, how much time they've wasted, pretending humility was virtue instead of fear. You don't crave followers, you attract witnesses. Because dominance isn't about commanding others, it's about controlling your own gravity. And your gravity is brutal. It pulls truth out of lies, confidence out of fear, and masks off faces that thought they'd never be seen. They'll gather in corners, talking about how power changed you. They'll rewrite the timeline so they don't have to admit they were wrong. They'll say, you got lucky, got help, got soft. Anything to protect their narrative. Because if they admit that your rise was methodical, earned, intentional, then they have to admit they could have done it too. And nothing terrifies mediocrity more than realizing greatness was always an option. You didn't steal their power. You simply stopped giving them yours. Sometimes, late at night, they try to imitate the mindset. They'll stand in mirrors, mimic your stillness, rehearse your smirk. But imitation requires understanding, and understanding requires pain. You paid that price in full. They're still bargaining, that's why it doesn't work for them. Dominance born from pain carries an authenticity that can't be forged. Every scar of yours is a signature. Every wound healed is an investment. They can copy the surface, but they'll never survive the process. That's why your existence feels unfair to them, because you remind them of all the suffering they ran from. Your calmness is a storm with manners. You enter rooms like gravity wearing a grin. You speak in questions that sound like commands. People think you're unpredictable, but really you're precise. You just don't reveal the logic. That's the trick of true dominance. It's always 2 moves ahead, but never shows it's bored. They're still reacting to ghosts of your last decision. unaware you've already made the next 5. That's why they call you dangerous. You don't announce, you appear. You don't threaten, you deliver. And in a world obsessed with visibility, invisibility is the deadliest weapon. Watch them now, forming alliances against you, pretending to be united by purpose. But unity built on jealousy collapses under its own hypocrisy. They'll smile for each other while sharpening knives behind their backs. You don't even have to stop them. Their need to compete will handle that for you. Dominance doesn't destroy its enemies. It lets them destroy themselves, trying to imitate it. You're not in their fight anymore. You're the gravity that decides where they fall. And here's the cruel joke. They'd love to see you fail, but failure no longer exists in your vocabulary. Even when you lose, it looks like strategy. Even when you bleed, it looks like art. Because you've learned how to turn chaos into choreography. They watch you stumble and call it arrogance, but deep down, they know it's evolution. You move like someone who's already forgiven the world for misunderstanding them. That's what truly unhinges them. Mercy from someone they can't reach is humiliation disguised as grace. Every empire has watchers, spies, parasites. Yours are no different. They hide in plain sight. Followers who pretend they're critics, enemies who can't stop returning. They study your habits, your schedule, your tone. They're not looking for weakness, they're looking for a blueprint. But they'll never find one, because your architecture is instinct. You can't copy something that wasn't constructed. It was born. That's why they keep failing. They're students of logic chasing someone fluent in chaos. And in that chaos, you found your peace. Strange, isn't it? The louder the noise gets, the quieter your mind becomes. Because you know what they don't. That control isn't about holding tighter. It's about letting go of fear. Fear makes people twitch. Fear makes them chase. Fear makes them talk. You've discarded it entirely. That's why they can't manipulate you. They still think dominance is about winning arguments. But you stopped arguing the moment you realized no one can debate results. You are the result. Look at the way they behave around you now. Every movement rehearsed. Every word edited. They're careful. But the caution isn't respect. It's exposure. You've turned interaction into interrogation. They reveal themselves just by trying to impress you. You don't need to ask questions. Their nervous laughter answers them all. You've turned psychology into art. Every hesitation, every micro-expression, it all feeds you information. You know who's real and who's trembling behind masks. You know who's plotting and who's pretending. Dominance, after all, isn't about control. It's about clarity. They whisper, "You've changed." But that's projection. They changed the moment they realized they couldn't define you anymore. You're not angry. You're awake. You don't hate them. You outgrew them. You don't seek revenge. You embody it. Because nothing punishes an insecure soul more than watching the one they doubted flourish effortlessly. You don't lift a finger, and yet their own envy does the work. You've become their haunting success that echoes in the spaces where their confidence should have been. Every great dominator learns this truth. Once you stop chasing control, you start creating reality. You don't need to manipulate outcomes. They unfold in your favor by default. That's why the air feels heavier when you enter. The universe recognizes certainty. It rearranges itself for those who refuse to kneel. You don't command respect anymore. You attract inevitability. And inevitability, my dear, is the scariest form of power there is. But dominance comes with isolation. The higher you rise, the quieter it becomes. That's not loneliness, it's altitude. You've outgrown the noise, and oxygen gets thin up here. Most can't breathe at this level. That's why they talk from below. Let them. Every echo that reaches you is proof you're above the range of their understanding. Power, real power, isn't about having more. It's about needing less. You could vanish tomorrow, and the room would still carry your echo. That's the kind of permanence they can't buy. Still, they keep testing you, don't they? Little provocations, subtle jabs, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they can make you react. Because if you react, they can convince themselves you still exist on their level. But you won't. You've transcended reaction. You've turned restraint into dominance. Nothing unnerves manipulators more than indifference. They can't hook what doesn't bite. You walk away, and they mistake it for loss, until they realize you've taken the whole game with you. They'll keep plotting, keep whispering, keep failing, because they haven't learned the one truth you live by. Dominance isn't won, it's remembered. You were always this way. You just stopped hiding it. And now that it's out, there's no going back. You've become a living reminder that fear and respect are just different shades of the same color, and you wear both perfectly. So let them choke on their disbelief. Let them build myths about your downfall. You'll be too busy writing new definitions of power. Because when they said you were the boss, they didn't understand. Boss isn't a title. It's a temperament. It's the ability to walk through chaos untouched, to smile while the world folds around you, to watch empires crumble and never lose your footing. That's not leadership. It's legend. And legend doesn't ask for permission to exist. It just does. And that's what terrifies them the most. You don't just hold dominance, you've become it. And they'll spend the rest of their trembling lives trying to understand how you did it. See, that's the part they'll never decode. How? They'll rewind every moment, retrace every scar, dissect every rumor, and still come up empty-handed. Because dominance isn't built in daylight, it's sculpted in the dark. It's the art of turning every insult into evidence, every betrayal into blueprint. You took what was meant to humble you and weaponized it. That's what separates you from them. They think power is about visibility, the spotlight, the applause, the headlines. But you mastered invisibility. You made restraint louder than reaction, made patience more violent than revenge. You don't chase moments. You create aftermaths. They can't stand that. They wanted you broken, dependent, predictable. But you became rhythm, too smooth to disrupt, too fluid to capture. You flow where they freeze. That's what eats them alive. Their rules don't apply to you anymore. You operate on instinct, and instinct doesn't negotiate. It decides. It moves without waiting for approval. That's what makes them panic. Not your voice, but your quiet. Not your rise, but your composure. Dominance, real dominance, is silence in motion. Power so still, it makes others trip over their own insecurity. You've noticed how the air shifts when you speak now, haven't you? How people stop mid-sentence, unsure if they're allowed to continue. That's not fear, that's recognition. It's the subconscious bow every weak soul performs when strength walks in. They don't even know they're doing it. But you see it. The flinch, the hesitation, the swallowed words. That's the music of power. You don't demand submission, you summon it without a sound. It's written in their nervous laughter, their sudden politeness, their need to over-explain themselves around you. That's how the universe applauds its new ruler, in the tremors of the insecure. And yet, you remain untouchable. Not because you built walls, but because you became one. Your boundaries are made of truth, and truth can't be manipulated. That's why they fail. Every attempt to provoke you ends in self-destruction. They can't win against someone who no longer reacts. They don't realize you've transcended ego. You're not playing to be admired. You're existing to be undeniable. The difference? They chase validation. You command reality. Every move you make feels deliberate. But to you, it's just instinct. That's the mark of mastery, when strategy looks like breathing. It's poetic, isn't it? The same mouths that once shouted over you now whisper your name like superstition. The same ones who mocked your ambition now borrow your tone, copy your rhythm, mimic your calm. You're not just in their heads, you've become their compass. Every move they make is a reaction to your existence. You walk forward, and the world reorganizes. You pause, and they wait. You disappear, and they panic. That's the irony of dominance. The less you do, the more they feel you. Presence without effort, influence without noise. You've become the paradox that rewrote their understanding of control. And here's the cruelest truth of all. They'll never recover from it. Because dominance doesn't fade. It lingers. Even when you're gone, they'll still measure themselves against your ghost. You've branded the atmosphere with your essence, the way a scent stays in a room long after the match goes out. You didn't just dominate space, you infected time. That's what terrifies them, that your name will still command respect long after their voices fade into static. That every attempt to erase you will only sharpen your legend. They can bury your image, but they'll never kill the influence. You see, when you reach this level of power, enemies become historians. They'll spend their days documenting your moves, disguising fascination as criticism. But underneath the envy is awe. Underneath the gossip is respect. They hate what they love, and love what they hate. Because deep down, they know you're the standard, the equation they can't solve. You've turned existence into dominance, survival into empire. And every time they think they've caught up, you shift again. Because you were never competing, you were creating distance. That's why they tremble when they talk about you. They don't know what to call you anymore. Too real to be rumor, too consistent to be coincidence. You've become folklore in real time, a living myth made of discipline and defiance. And that's where your true power lies, not in their fear, but in their fascination. They study you like a threat, but worship you like a god. That's what happens when control becomes character, when presence becomes prophecy, when dominance stops being something you display and becomes something you are. So let them whisper, let them plot, let them pray for your downfall. You've already rewritten what falling even means. You don't descend, you redirect. You don't stumble, you strategize. Every loss becomes a lesson, every setback a stage. That's the difference between them and you. They build empires out of noise. You build legacies out of silence. And when the smoke clears, your name stands untouched. Not because you shouted loudest, but because you never needed to. In the end, dominance isn't about control. It's about inevitability. It's when every attempt to stop you only confirms your authority. You've reached that level now. They can't outthink you, outwork you, or outlast you. You've become the proof that power doesn't corrupt. Weakness does. You're not chasing victory anymore. You are victory, the kind that walks, breathes, and leaves people trembling in its wake. So let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them wear themselves out trying to decode what can't be explained. You are the boss now, not by declaration, but by demonstration. And no matter how loudly they deny it, their every reaction betrays the truth. Your dominance isn't temporary, it's eternal.